Jeanette DeMeo was kidnapped on her way from school in California on June 6, 2003. Fortunately for her, she was an avid watcher of crime TV shows. This interest of hers single-handedly saved her life. The 9-year-old managed to safely escape the kidnapper, gather evidence that would end up getting him arrested. This is the story of how it happened. After getting off from her school bus on June 6, 2003, Jeanette DeMeo noticed that something seemed off about her house as the door was slightly open. She speculated that her mother might have arrived early from work. She then went upstairs to her room and noticed that the window of her room was broken and shards of glass were scattered all over her room. She felt something was wrong and decided to call her mother just to see that the landline connection was also cut. In the meanwhile, there was a knock at the door. Jeanette went downstairs to see who it was and opened the door. Standing there was the kidnapper. In a hurry, she tried to close the door but was stopped by the man. He forcibly opened the door, grabbed Jeanette, and took her to her room. He threw her on the bed and started assaulting her. After he was done, he handcuffed Jeanette, tied her legs, and dragged her to the garage where his car was. But before he could escape with Jeanette, another car pulled up in the garage, and it was Jeanette's mother, Rosalie, and her 15-year-old brother, Paul. The two tried to save Jeanette from the kidnapper but ended up getting brutally beaten up by the perpetrator. The kidnapper then handcuffed Jeanette in his car and flew off with her. With blood all over the man's face, Jeanette thought that her mother and brother were no more. However, she took a sigh of relief when she saw them running after the car. On their way to the kidnapper's house, Jeanette tried to scream for help, but it was of no use, as she was brutally hit by the man multiple times with a screwdriver. After a while, they reached the destination and the kidnapper took Jeanette to a room upstairs. There, he assaulted her multiple times and would leave her in the shower handcuffed. In the meanwhile, the neighbors had called 911. They reached Jeanette's house where her mother and brother were lying severely injured. They tried to tell the investigation team what had happened, but were taken to the hospital as they were severely injured. Detective Heather Randall and her team investigated the crime scene and security cameras in the neighborhood, but found nothing that could trace Jeanette and the kidnapper. They then distributed flyers and held press conferences to make sure that the people knew 9-year-old Jeanette was missing. Jeanette, on the other hand, held her nerves together and came up with an idea to escape. She figured out a way to open the handcuff, and when the kidnapper went to grab water for her, she quickly managed to gather all the evidence and kept them in a safe place. When the kidnapper came back, she quickly handcuffed herself again. The kidnapper, meanwhile, gave his phone to Jeanette to order pizza from a restaurant nearby. She hastily talked to the operator at the restaurant and gave the address to the place. After a few minutes, the delivery boy reached the house and the kidnapper went to answer it. He came back and handed the pizza box to Jeanette, which had a flyer with Jeanette's picture on it. He had realized that the cops were after him and told Jeanette that he'll be getting rid of her tonight. As soon as the man left the room, Jeanette quickly uncuffed herself, threw the pizza, and started putting all the evidence in the pizza box. She then hid the box under the bed so that the cops could find it afterwards. The kidnapper came back and tried to kill Jeanette by putting a pillow on her face. She tried to fight him off, but he was just too strong. After a few seconds, he let her go and told her to go take a shower and get dressed. When she came back, he took her to the car and dropped her off at a liquor store near the highway. Jeanette quickly pulled herself together and entered the liquor store. She asked the cashier if she could use her phone to call for help. The cashier had recognized Jeanette and immediately called 911. Detective Heather Randall and her team quickly arrived at the scene, and Randall was very happy to see Jeanette alive. Jeanette gave Randall all the evidence and took her to the kidnapper's house. The tactical team arrived and stormed the kidnapper's house and arrested Curtis Dean Anderson. Jeanette is now working to become a detective like Heather, who saved her life and aims to be the voice of missing persons. That's all for today. Hope you enjoyed today's episode of Crime 101. We'll see you next time with another video, but until then, have a nice day.